They say home is where the heart is. But for me, home was more than just a place of comfort. It was a promise. It was a 1920s craftsman house with a porch that creaked in the summer breeze and a garden where my grandfather taught me how to plant marigolds before he passed. He left it to me, not to his children, but to me. He saw the way I cared for those walls, the way I painted the shutters when they chipped, and the way I treated every floorboard like a piece of history. My name is Elena, and for years, I believed I lived in a sanctuary of love and trust. My parents lived just 10 minutes away. They were always there for Sunday dinners, sitting at my table, drinking wine from my glasses, and complimenting the inheritance that kept our family legacy alive. I thought we were a team. I thought they were proud of me for keeping the family home in such perfect condition. But trust is a fragile thing, isn't it? It's like a glass vase. Once it's shattered, you can glue the pieces back together, but the cracks will always show. I remember that Tuesday afternoon vividly. The sun was shining, hitting the stained glass in the entryway just right. I was returning from a 3-day business trip, exhausted but happy to be back. As I pulled into my driveway, my heart stopped. I sat in my car, the engine still idling, staring at that bright red sticker. My mind raced. Was this a mistake? A prank? A neighbor's idea of a cruel joke? I felt a cold shiver run down my spine, a primal instinct telling me that the ground beneath me was about to give way. My hands shook as I reached for my phone to call my mother. I expected her to laugh and say it was a misunderstanding. Instead, when she picked up, her voice was different. It was cold, businesslike. "Elena, darling," she said, before I could even speak. "We need to talk. We've made a decision that's best for everyone." That was the moment I realized the people who gave me life were about to take everything that made that life worth living. They didn't see a home. They saw a payday. And what they didn't know was that while they had the keys, they didn't have the one thing that mattered most. I walked into my own living room to find my parents sitting on my velvet sofa, looking like they were hosting a meeting. My father had a folder of papers. My mother wouldn't meet my eyes. "We sold the house, Elena," my father said, his voice devoid of any guilt. "The market is at an all-time high. Your brother is in deep trouble with his business, and we need the liquidity. Besides, this house is too big for a single woman. You'll thank us later when you're settled in a nice, manageable apartment." I felt my breath catch in my throat. Shattered. That's the only word for it. I felt my soul literally breaking into 1,000 jagged pieces. "You sold my house?" I whispered. "Grandpa left it to me. His will was clear." My mother finally looked up, her expression hardening. "The will was old, Elena. We found a way to contest the deed transfer because of a technicality from years ago. The title was still technically in the family trust, which we control. We didn't think you'd mind helping your brother. Family comes first, doesn't it?" The betrayal tasted like copper in my mouth. My brother, the golden child, had gambled away his savings again, and my parents were willing to sell my memories to cover his debts. They had spent the last 3 days while I was away moving things. They had already signed a contract with a developer who planned to tear it down and build 3 modern boxes on the lot. My grandfather's marigolds were going to be paved over. I spent that night in a hotel, crying until my eyes were swollen shut. I felt so small, so exposed. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw them laughing at my table, already planning how to steal the chair from under me. But as the sun began to peek through the hotel curtains the next morning, the sadness started to transform. the heat of the tears turned into a cold, sharp clarity. I remembered something. My grandfather was a cautious man. He knew my father was impulsive. He knew my mother was manipulative. 2 weeks before he passed, he called me into his study. He gave me a small, weathered leather portfolio. "Elena," he had said, his voice a frail rasp, "this is the last paper. If the wolves ever come for your home, you show them this." I had tucked it away in a safe deposit box at a bank they didn't know I used, thinking I'd never need it. I thought he was just being a bit paranoid in his old age. I was wrong. He was being a visionary. I went to the bank, I opened the box, and there it was. Not just a will, but a life estate deed with a power of appointment clause, signed, witnessed, and notarized separately from the family trust. It was a document that stripped the trust of any power over the property the moment I turned 25. My parents thought they had found a loophole in the trust. What they didn't realize was that the house wasn't even in the trust anymore. It hadn't been for years. The closing was scheduled for Friday at 10 a.m. My parents and the developer were meeting at a posh downtown office to finalize the wire transfer. I walked in at 10:15. The room went silent. My mother looked annoyed. "Elena, this isn't the time for a scene. Go back to the hotel." I didn't say a word. I walked to the head of the table and slid a single, laminated document in front of the developer's lawyer. "I'm afraid there's a problem with your purchase," I said, my voice as steady as a surgeon's hand. "The people you are negotiating with don't own the property. They never did." The lawyer put on his glasses, his eyes widening as he read the last paper. He looked at my father, then back at the document. "This is a recorded life estate deed with a primary remainder interest. It predates the trust's claim and effectively dissolves the trust's authority over the deed." He turned to the developer. "Sir, the deal is dead. These people have committed fraud by attempting to sell an asset they have no legal right to." The chaos that followed was almost beautiful. The developer, furious at having his time wasted and his deposit tied up, threatened to sue my parents for every penny they had. My father turned pale, clutching his chest, while my mother started screaming that I was an ungrateful daughter. "Ungrateful?" I asked, looking her dead in the eye. "You tried to sell my home while I was at work. You tried to erase Grandpa's legacy to pay for a gambler's mistakes. You aren't my family. You're just people I used to know." I walked out of that office and headed straight to my house. I changed the locks, I put up a security system, and then I sat on my porch and watched the sunset. My parents lost everything in the legal battle that followed. The developer sued them for breach of contract, and they had to sell their own home just to pay the legal fees and the settlement. My brother? He had to finally face the consequences of his own actions. Sometimes people think that because you are kind, you are weak. They think that love means you'll let them walk all over you. But the deepest love is the love you have for your own peace and your own truth. I lost my parents that day, but I found my strength. I realized that a house is just wood and stone, but a home is built on integrity. Justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just the sound of a single piece of paper hitting a table. And as I sit in my garden today, tending to the marigolds, I know my grandfather is smiling. The wolves are gone, and the house is finally, truly mine.